Whenever you're ready.
Okay. Well, hello everybody. Thanks for coming today. This is just doing a present. This is a presentation that I've given quite a few times to people. And so what we're going to be looking at is conflict and our personality types and kind of how those things kind of work together and what we bring to the table when we find ourselves sort of at odds with others or even with ourselves. So I'm just going to kind of jump right in. So, oops. I'm going to minimize this. Sorry, I can't see my own thing. There it goes. So the question is, does anybody have to deal with people? Yes. Yes, we all do. So the problem with that is because we're all human, we fall into conflict. It's going to happen. It's not really a matter of if a conflict is going to happen, whether it's in your personal relationships, in your work relationships. It's going to happen. I'm not a proponent of it. I'm not cheering it on, but there's always going to be a conflict of opinion or interest, or really just misunderstandings. And but how we deal with that is sort of the differentiator of what that outcome is going to look like. So just really quick about me, I'm a family and civil mediator, credentialed in the state of Texas. I work with family, custody issues, divorces, as well as different business issues. Could be like an intergroup issue, something along that lines, working with human resources to kind of work through an issue. In addition to that, I'm a writer, communications and marketing, so really looking at communications in the written word, sort of preemptive or crisis communications, sort of what we've been going through right now. There's been a lot of companies and people that need to, really communicate, what's the status, with the COVID situation and so forth. So, dealing with that type of conflict through written communications is a really big part of it. And also an ADR advocate, which is alternative dispute resolution. Mediation is considered an alternative dispute resolution because the next step is litigation. So there's mediation, and then the next step is litigation. The idea is to empower people to work through your own issues, find a legal solution, something everybody can live with, stay out of the courts, keep your money, keep your sanity, keep your relationships if possible, or at least keep them manageable. And that's really the benefit of mediation and facilitating. Okay, so the question is, why do we fall into conflict with each other? There's a lot of reasons, but some of the biggest ones are, it's going to be cultural differences, background differences, customs. If you're dealing with people from different parts of the world, different origins, we're all very different. We have our own personal belief systems. We have our own personality traits. We have opinions. Everybody has an opinion. I think this, you think that. And then the biggest one, or I would say the second biggest one, other than culture and background, is assumptions and expectations. When we assume something to be true, or we have an expectation of something, when that expectation fails, we get into a place of misunderstanding. And they happen all the time. So there's several conflict types, but the ones talking about today is really dealing on a more of a personal level. So there's interpersonal and there's intrapersonal. So there's, the conflict or the misunderstanding between two people, and that can be two people from anywhere. It could be with a family member, a spouse, significant other, a coworker. An intrapersonal, which is something that's happening inside of you. If you're having a conflict, you're having a dilemma, you're trying to make a decision about something. And a lot of times those conflicts that are happening in ourselves, we don't really realize how it'll sort of affect our conflict management style with other people. Because if you have stuff going on with you, it can spill out a little bit, and it can start affecting how you handle those conflicts with others. So what's the worst way to react? And I have the word react underlined because that's going to be really important to remember. The worst way to react to a conflict as they arise at work, at home, is by being a weenie. And depending on where you spend time or your communication groups or community, you may have heard the acronym weenie before. If you haven't, that's okay, because we're gonna talk about it. So the most common reactions that we have to people when we're in a conflict situation, or we're stressed out, or we're kind of being pushed on something and we're not quite on board with it, the most common ones is either to withdraw, to escalate, to have a negative interpretation of the event, or to invalidate the person or group that's sort of approaching us with a piece of information. So some examples of withdrawal could be, you know, I'm going to keep this on a personal, like if it was a personal relationship of some sort. Say you have someone who's coming to you and says, hey, when you did this the other day, I really was upset and that really hurt my feelings and I really need to talk about it. So one example of how you could react is to withdraw. And you say, well, no, I don't want to talk about that. And you just sort of make your exit because you just don't want to deal with that. That's a withdrawal. The same situation, that person comes to you and says, hey, I really want to talk about this. You can just pour gas on the fire by escalating. What are you talking about? I have no idea. Let's get this going. You know what? I want to talk about this and this. And basically, you're just setting a fire. You're taking that event and you're escalating it to a whole new level. Negative interpretation. Again, the same event. The person comes to you, hey, I want to talk about this. I'm really hurt. Your initial reaction is, I never do anything right. You know, you're telling me that I can't do anything right. You're telling me that I'm not a good friend. You're telling me I'm not a good coworker. That's a negative interpretation. None of those things were actually said, but that's a way, a filter that you could interpret what's being said to you. And then invalidate. Same scenario, someone comes to you, hey, I want to talk about this, and your immediate reaction is, that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. How dare you come to me, even say that to me? That is ridiculous. That's an invalidation. You're not willing to hear what they're saying, and you're just knocking it out right from the get-go and saying that's not even possible. So those are 4 very different ways to interpret the immediate reaction to that situation. So keeping that in mind, this is all, the way that we react and the way we handle this is, it all comes down to our emotional intelligence. We've heard this word a lot. We've talked about it a lot, just in society in general over the last probably about 10 years or so. It's really been something that's recognized. And there's major components of handling our emotional intelligence, which is going to be the driver of how we handle conflict, of how we handle social situations, how we handle work, how we handle people in general. And so there's several aspects that sort of make up our EI, if you will. But what we're going to talk about today is the self-awareness, which is why we kind of talked about the immediate reactions, the weenie reactions. And so we're gonna look at self-awareness today, very specifically, just kind of see where we fall, just sort of as our default. You know, not thinking about it, it's not a good, bad, right, or wrong. It's just, where do I kind of default to when I feel a little bit pressed against the wall? So now we're going to get a little bit more interactive. So going back to weenie, what would you say? And you don't have to say it out loud, but what would you say, looking at those examples? Just a mental note. Do you tend to sort of withdraw? Do you tend to escalate it, take it to the next level, interpret a situation very negatively, or invalidate? So just kind of keep in the back of your mind, which one do you find yourself just sort of a knee-jerk reaction, maybe leaning towards a little bit more than the others? Okay. Okay, and then the Enneagram, I hope everyone had a chance to get to the little Integrand test, the short little test. You should be, after you finish the test, you have a type or a number, and then it gives you a little bit of more information. So just kind of looking at your notes from that, what's your type and number, and your most dominant and second most dominant, which is your 2 top numbers. Okay, so here's where we get into the exercise. What is your dominant and second most dominant Enneagram type? What's your default weenie style? And then on that test, what would you say is the most true statement of how to get along with me for each of your top 2 any types? And then after that, look at what is the most true statement and what's hardest for you for each of your top 2 any types. I know there's like a pop quiz part of this. And I'm sorry if I'm kind of racing through here. It's kind of weird doing this online. We're usually in a room together when we do this. But if you look through those questions and just kind of look at your test, kind of think about that, and just kind of find those most true statements that you would think about yourself. So if anybody wants to jump in, we can go ahead and start turning on mics a little bit, and we can start if anyone wants to jump in.
I was still looking through the last two, but I can answer for the first two. First, default weenie style, I would say I tend to like automatically like invalidate and like, you know, see what, like identify what's incorrect about what they're saying. And then the dominant and second E types came back. First one is the 6, the loyalist, and 5, the second one is the investigator. I'll need a minute to like pick out the most true for those last two questions though.
I'm sorry, say that again, the most true and what's hardest for you?
Yeah, I'm still reading through those items to answer that, so come back to me.
See, normally I would be able to see you guys and I could sort of gauge, okay, this is where we all are. So I just finally got the camera back up so I can see you all.
Yeah, I'm just looking through those last two as well.
Sure. And again, if you don't want to share it necessarily in the setting, you don't necessarily have to, but I'm just kind of opening it up and we can share those. And I'll actually share mine with you. That way I can, kind of get the ball rolling, because I promise there really is a point why this might seem like different kinds of information, but there really is a tie that brings it together. So I'm just going to kind of wait until I get a little bit of a thumbs up from y'all, and then when you're finished looking through that, we can go forward.
Did you still want some of us to share?
If you would like to share, we can absolutely do that.
I'll go ahead. My dominant and second dominant E types 1 and 3 or 4. I'm not really sure about the second one, but I think I'm very strongly dominant 1. My default weenie style is definitely escalate. I think, especially if I feel like even if I'm the one approaching a conflict and then they're not receiving it, like I like really direct communication, so I start to escalate, especially if somebody withdraws, because I feel like I need to charge forward.
Sure.
Yeah. And then the thing that to get along with me, there were 2 that were pretty equal. So it's take your share of the responsibility so I don't end up with all the work, and gently encourage me to laugh at myself when I get too uptight, but hear my worries. I like that part. It's like, hear my worries. Like, I need to loosen up, but I also want to be heard and like know that my worries are okay. And then the hardest part about being a 1 was being disappointed with myself or others when my expectations aren't met.
So when I hear you say that, what I'm kind of putting together is that because to get along with you kind of need somebody to hear you, which is totally normal. We all need to be heard. That's definitely, that'll get me. If I'm talking or I'm trying to communicate something and you're just not hearing me, my frustration level can sort of add up too. But since you're kind of that default style is to escalate, I'm going to say, or you tell me, but it kind of, what I'm hearing you say is that you are more prone maybe to want to escalate that a little bit more the less you feel like you're getting heard. Would that be fair?
Yes, you're pretty spot on there.
Okay. So really, keeping in mind when you feel like maybe you're ready to start putting some gas on the fire, maybe that's kind of a step to say, okay, hold on, I don't think you're hearing me. Let me back up before we go there. And that's taking a reaction, and we're gonna, in the next couple slides, we'll talk about it, but you're taking that initial reaction and you're forming a response instead. Instead of leaning directly into the reaction, you're using it to say, okay, I'm ready to take this to the next level. Hold on. Let me backtrack a little bit and let me form a response. And a response is going to be what takes the conversation to the next level, as opposed to it dropping through the floor. And so that's kind of where this is all tying to kind of say, I need these things, but I know I do these things, because we can never control what someone else is going to do. We can't control how they're going to react to us. But the one thing we do have control over is our own self-awareness and what we contribute to it. So yeah, that's awesome that you saw that spot on, and you already know. It's like when you feel that heat rising, and I do too. When you feel that heat rising around your neck, that's when I have to kind of step back and go, okay, hold on. I don't think you're hearing me.
Yeah.
And that's just a great way to do it. And then what's hardest, sometimes that's hard to admit, say, this is really tough, about me, these are things that's hard being me. So you're kind of acknowledging that too. You need both of those sides, and they all very much work together. So the only thing we can do is understand that, and then form our reactions to form a response, so that we can hopefully have our needs met in the most reasonable way. And we know that we put it in as far as it depends on me or you or whoever.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes, that's great.
Awesome. Anybody else want to jump in?
I was trying to find, is it on the Enneagram website where you find like the what like the weaknesses are? Because mine was my top 3 was 4, 7, and 2. So I was trying to find where I could see the how to get along with me, and then what's hardest for you. I would think that mine would be withdraw, but that's just me.
It's all, yeah, absolutely. It's about you kind of seeing kind of where you fall.
Yeah.
It's actually, when you take that little, on the integrandtest.net, that website, when it gives you the results, that's actually part of the written results.
Oh, okay. Let me go.
So that's why I said to kind of keep that to the side, and, so you can access it pretty easily. But it has 3 sections on there: how to get along, what's hardest, and then what I like most.
Yes, I just found it. So what's hard about being a 4 is I feel like a lot of it is just like internalizing a lot of stuff. That's definitely me. My brain's like going like 80 miles per hour all the time. Like it says obsessing over resentments, which is, I mean, I don't think it's an obsession, but I definitely think that I do have kind of an overthinker sometimes. And I love the thing that's like how to get along with me. It says, don't tell me that I'm too sensitive or that I'm overreacting, which is like 100% me. But yeah, and I don't know, I agree with everything about the 4. It says I have sensitive feelings, and I'm warm and perceptive, and which I would think, I guess I agree with. It's always weird talking about yourself, but yeah.
So if I can jump in, is there like a list of the numbers and their labels? People keep referring to being a 4, and I don't know what that archetype is.
The 4 is the individualist. If you actually if you go to the Google and just types, it'll actually show you. There's actually 9 types.
If you go to where you'll find.
If you Google Enneagram types, you'll have a whole bunch of results, but you can click any of the websites and it'll actually give you a rundown of all 9 types.
Gotcha. Posting it in the chat.
So she was saying the number 4, I can tell, like, I'm kind of surprised number 3 was 2, which is the helper, or the helper. Because I work with Elena, so I see her all the time, so I can definitely see those characteristics in her. Anybody else want to jump in or just kind of share, or? I guess no.
We can finish up mine. I didn't answer the last two questions. What is most true about how to get along with me for each of the top two types? My top one was 6, which is the loyalist. The most true about that is speak in a straightforward and brief manner. Just if people try to like say it indirectly, I'll just misinterpret it. And then my other type is 5, the investigator. And what's most true there is make me feel welcome, but not too intensely, or I might doubt your sincerity. But yeah, both of those resonate with me. Like, you know, I appreciate, you know, when people take steps to make me feel welcome, but then if they're all like, it's like super flowery and just, you know, being real flattery, then I'm immediately like, okay, what's going on? And then what's hardest for me for 6, wishing that I had a rule book so I could do everything right. You know, I'm always worried that like people will like freak out at me like doing certain things. So you know, wish I'd had some kind of like guidance so I can be like, okay, hey, I'm just trying to do things the right way. And then for 5, watching others with better social skills, less technical skills, do better professionally. Just yeah, that annoys me.
Do you feel like, because what I'm hearing is you're pretty much a straight shooter, very practical, you know, too many flowery things might be a little bit, you know, kind of raise an eyebrow to it. Do you feel like, because you know that about yourself, that maybe it's lent just either currently or in the past, maybe some misunderstandings where somebody, maybe a coworker, maybe a family member, where you're just like you're just not seeing each other eye to eye?
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah. And it's not a right or wrong. When I say that, it's not a right or wrong answer. It's just difference. It's just differences. You know, different reaction to handling conflict, a different way, just a different viewpoint. But the reason I bring it up is that it's something, again, something you can control. It's like, well, hold on, I'm a pretty straight shooter. Not really sure I'm hearing what you're saying. It's just something that you can kind of keep it acknowledged on your part to know, yeah, this isn't really the way I communicate. This isn't my preferred way. So maybe, you know, this is a misunderstanding as opposed to something deliberate. And I guess that's kind of, so that's just something in those types, especially, and with that conflict style, that's something that can happen. So this is really just about self-awareness and saying, hey, you know what, that's kind of what I'm bringing. Maybe I'm not seeing the way you see something. Because I think 90% of the time, it's misunderstandings really is coming from a conflicting points of view and just different styles of handling things, and it can get a little out of control sometimes. So I'm a divorce mediator. I've seen it get, yeah, a little out of control sometimes. Well, thank you for everybody that kind of wanted to share that a little bit. Is there anyone else that wants to kind of share or talk about any of those or anything like that?
I can go really quickly. I am a dominant 7. Pretty certainly. I've like read into it for a while because I was confused on what I would be, and then when I finally realized,
Which one is the 7?
the 7 is what is the actual, like, the enthusiast. So dominant 7, but then really close to a 3 as well. Like my search results typically give me one or the other. But landed on 7. So my default conflict style is withdrawal 100%. True statement, how to get along with me. I liked the first listing under the results. Give me companionship, affection, and freedom. Freedom is a very big one. And then the most true statement about what's hardest for me. There a lot of them ring true, but probably not having enough time to do all the things I want. I just have all of these goals and dreams and ideas, and it's really hard for me to create the actual time to do all of the things, and I chase rabbits constantly. And so balancing all the ideas with the discipline to follow through is something I'm always working on. But those are kind of my high level highlights, I guess.
Um, that's awesome. And I understand. I definitely, I wish there, in some ways, I wish there were more hours in a day. And then on the other hand, I think, what am I thinking? I don't need more hours in a day. That's crazy. I'm already doing too much. But do you feel like, because something that's really important to you is that freedom and that being an enthusiast, you want to keep that energy, you want to keep that joy, just kind of like that joy going, and there's so many things you want to do, and you're trying to get that positivity. Do you feel like that when, if there's a misunderstanding or if there's sort of a conflict that's brewing, do you feel like by withdrawing, is that because it's kind of infringing on your freedom, or you feel like you're being pushed against the wall, or is it just, I don't want to go into the negative vibe with you? Is it, you see what I'm saying? Is it, are you avoiding, do you feel like you're avoiding something a little bit because you just want to kind of stay in that positive place?
Yeah, I think about this a lot. But I know I withdraw. It's more so a fear of having, like you said, any kind of like, I think conflict in general, I never want it to last. I know it's important to address, but I worry after addressing it that negativity could set in forever. And I want to keep relationships good. I want to keep everything positive. And so conflict can go one way or the other typically. And so, 90% of the time it ends up making things better. But I think often I withdraw. I have to withdraw to process in general. Just when like hard news hits, my immediate response is to be upbeat and be positive and immediately look at what the silver lining could be. And then days or weeks later, I finally withdraw to like actually process what happened, and it's like a way delayed response. And then conflict's kind of similar. I'll put it off until I know, okay, I want to like love and serve this person really well. It has to happen. But one of my big fears, I'm like a peacemaker at heart, and so conflict disrupts peace oftentimes, and joy and good energy, all the things. So yeah, it's mostly just to avoid any negative outcomes.
Have you found in those moments that you do sort of take the step into it, or you kind of re-engage with it? Have you had a positive outcome to most of those conflicts, or do you feel like they sort of stay lingering with you?
No, I definitely, the times when I've just followed discipline over my innate reaction, it's always for the better. And it's so good that we talked about those things, because I think everyone knows when something just drags out, it almost gets worse. And so it usually is best just to air out the dirty laundry and go ahead and approach what needs to be said in conflict with that person. But it's like a natural rhythm that I constantly have to fight against. Like, okay, don't run from this. And again, with the freedom thing, it's my reaction for almost anything is just to like run away. I'll go on a trip, I want to travel, I'll escape, whatever it is. So trying to, and this season's been a good one of just learning how to be grounded, because I have nowhere else to go.
I'm with you, sister. I think you and I are on the same wavelength. So what you just said, we're not right, but we're super close in what mine are. So I hear what you're saying very clearly. It's very resonating. Anybody else want to jump in? And again, nobody has to, but I think we're good on time. Yep, we're good on time. So if anybody else wants to jump in, you can. But again, not a requirement.
So I took the test. This is Megan. I took the test and got my email back. Still cannot place the statements of how to get along with me or what's hardest for you. So I don't know if I'm just incompetent or what, but I can't find it. I do know my type. I read a couple books about the Enneagram, but then taking this test was just confirmation. But I am a 3, and then my second was a 2. So it adds up, because I've always said 3 wing too. The achiever is my number, but it's kind of cool. I was listening to everybody. Everyone so far who has spoken is a different number as their dominant, which is neat, a neat group here. But and then my default, I would say, man, I didn't write it down and I can't go back on your slides. It was the
Withdraw, escalate, negative interpret, and
negative interpretation. Yes, yes. And if my husband were listening, he would say the same thing about me. So hearing someone say something completely different than what they're actually saying and spinning it in order to, you know, it ends in a conflict. So, but yeah, I don't have those statements with me. I'd be interested to see what they are, but
I think, and I'm trying to remember, I think on that particular test, it gives you the results on your web page, and I'm not sure if it actually included it all in the email. So I don't think it's you. I think they give you the email, but for some reason they may not have included like
it might be like on the page right when you finish the test, maybe, that I immediately exited out of and then went to the email.
Yeah.
It's
But,
actually, sorry to interrupt. I was just going to let you know that's at the bottom of the page, and it says it takes 1 minute to generate, and there's a button like next page for results at the very bottom. So that's probably how you missed it.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Then I just missed it. But I'm pretty familiar with the Enneagram. So I would say I don't know how exactly they were wording these, but what is hardest for me would probably be when to stop and the conflict of stopping when I feel like I need to versus when other people think I should, because the 3 is pretty image conscious. So wanting to be perceived as successful as much as wanting to be successful. So if I feel like I'm getting burnt out on something, it's hard for me to actually stop, even though I think I need to, because out of fear of other people's perception. I don't know if that was on the statements at all, but that's something that I think resonates closely with me. And then how to get along with me, I would say like coming alongside in goals versus trying to think, like, don't tell me to stop, you know, fighting for them, but maybe coming alongside, like, how can we do this together? Because whenever I'm at my healthiest, I would say I am pushing for goals alongside people, like as a team versus all on my own, wanting to be the best. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you. And I'll, you know, and what I'm hearing from you say, it's interesting when you look at your Enneagram, and this is why I love putting these two things together, because looking at your Enneagram, knowing that you really have that achievement, you know, it's important. It sounds like you're very goal oriented. You want to be successful. You want to be perceived as successful. It's just an important part of just how you live, how you work, how you things. So when you look at the default style of negative interpretation, it almost, do you feel like sometimes if someone's bringing something to your attention, it's almost like a criticism where they're maybe in your mind to you, not that it's not real, I say in your mind, but it feels like, oh my gosh, you're criticizing me when I'm working my butt off. Do you
Yeah,
feel
absolutely.
that's kind of like a little fire that's inside of you?
Yeah, which I think can lead to the escalate also. Like I think I resonate with both of those, of negatively interpreting and then wanting to defend, you know, my efforts and escalating.
That's awesome that you're able to, you know, kind of look at that. And that's, you know, why we look at the self-awareness, because maybe an alternative when you sort of, again, that reaction, which is just that default knee-jerk reaction that's inside of you, that's one of those moments you could say, well, hold on, this is something that's really important to me. Maybe I need to really, what are you really saying? I don't know if I'm hearing you correctly. You know, you give someone an opportunity to sort of reframe it. And when you do that, it gives you a moment to pause. And then it also gives you the opportunity to say, if this is maybe sort of a hard conversation that someone's having with you that is based on a project or performance or something that's going on, you know, because you know how important it is to you to collaborate and to work together, that could be an opportunity for you to say, hey, okay, I'm hearing you say this, but kind of what I need in this situation is I need us to kind of be on the same page, or I need us to sort of work towards, this goal, or, whatever, however that might apply in whatever the situation is. But it kind of gives you, knowing this, it kind of gives you the opportunity to back up just a second and say, okay, this is how I'm feeling, but our feelings are indication system of something else that's going on. So it's very real. The way you feel, nobody can tell you how to feel, but it's an indicator of, okay, there's something else that's brewing inside of me. Let me take a second from this reaction and then form a response. Does that make sense?
Yes, that does. That does make a lot of sense.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And I love the achievers, because I love achievers. I wish I was higher 3, but I'm not.
Oh man, there are woes to all of them, and there are pros to all of them. It's so awesome. And I think it's neat that there are 9, but there's obviously lots of people, so there can be different forms of each one.
Absolutely. Anybody else want to jump on? I think we're okay on time. Okay, I'm gonna move forward, and we can always come back if somebody else wants to jump in after. Maybe we're gonna move forward. Yeah, let's get that. Okay, so remembering all of those things that we talked about, and I think we all have there's some similarities, but there's some differences. I love that there were so many different ways of handling the default reaction. So when you're being a weenie, if you're a withdrawal, escalate, negative interpreter, we have iPads, we have iPhones, we have iMacs. So I said, well, let's make an iPal. Let's make an alternative. So if the initial reaction you're feeling is a withdrawal, and I'm a withdrawer or an escalator, because I vacillate. So I'll either pull far away, or I'll say, oh, forget that, and then I take it to the umpteenth level. So I have to be aware of that when I'm involved in something, because I know I'm going to want to do that. So when I'm feeling a need to withdraw, that's my reaction. An alternative to form a response would be to invest or engage. If your immediate reaction is to withdraw, the alternative to that is take a minute and actually communicate it, and just say, I need a little space. I just need a minute. I'm feeling a little taken back, or I'm not quite where you are to have this conversation, but I need a few minutes, or I need a little bit of space, but I want to have this conversation with you, and thank you. If you're in a situation with someone, especially in a personal conflict or a personal situation, if you communicate, hey, I need a minute, but I want to have this conversation with you because I don't want this to happen, I think most of the time, depending on what it is, they're going to say, oh, okay. But you have to tell them that's what you need. But if you're withdrawing because you just want to run away, you definitely want to invest or engage. One additional note when I talk about withdrawing, and I didn't mention this earlier, and I should have, I've given this presentation a lot, and I actually have a workshop around it that's longer than this. When I say withdraw, I'm talking about that emotional investment, or feeling like you don't want to go into that negative space. There was a question that I had a long time ago that really made me readdress this withdrawal. If you're in a situation where you're physically in danger, or you feel like, and I'm not saying anyone here is, but just, when you speak to others, or if anyone should ask you, or if you should ever be in a situation, if you're in a situation where you're in danger and your immediate reaction is that you need to withdraw. It's always the right reaction. It's not your job to fix someone who's trying to possibly hurt you, or whatever that situation might be. But if you're in a dangerous situation, that doesn't apply here. You definitely want to withdraw, and then talk to someone, trusted friend, family member, someone along those lines, and talk about what happened. But you never want to engage with someone if you feel like you're in danger, or you're in that kind of a situation. So I always make that clear when I do this, because that's, we're not fixers. We don't fix other people. We can't change them. We can't convict them to feel this way or that way. So if you're in a situation, you definitely, withdrawal is always going to be your answer. that being said, the next one, escalate. If you're just ready, throw that gas on the fire. Let's make this thing. Let's burn this house down. That's a moment you definitely want to. You just want to pause. You know, just take a breath. You know, and communicate it. Again, you just communicate it and say, hey, you know what? I need just a second. I don't think I'm hearing. I don't know if I'm hearing you correctly. Give me a second. Help me understand. And again, it's that communication. It's just taking that moment to give yourself a second to breathe, let the other person maybe reframe or restate what they're saying a little bit before you immediately jump to that conclusion. And that might be the right answer. Sometimes escalating something is what you need to do. Sometimes it is. But if that's your initial reaction before taking a moment to think it through, it's more than likely not. Negative interpretation. Again, when we start getting into that mind space, oh my gosh, they think I'm the worst person on the planet. They hate my work. They hate my art. They hate everything about me. Before you let yourself go down that bunny trail and you're just at the bottom of that trail and it's just a real toxic place to be. Before you let yourself do it, or as you are feeling yourself go there, just take it and ask. And just literally kind of give a hold on, let me stop the conversation for a second. I need to ask you something. When you say this, what do you mean exactly? You know, help me understand. Again, help me understand is one of the most powerful statements that you're going to be able to tell someone when you're kind of getting in the thick of it, is hold on, help me understand. Because that may not be what they're trying to do. That may or may not. It may or may not be true what you're kind of interpreting that lens through. But asking those questions and asking somebody to help you understand is always going to be helpful. I don't think we have any invalidators here, but if someone should feel that, you know, if your immediate need is just to completely invalidate someone because it's just maybe they've hit a nerve, maybe, you know, it's just a really bad day, maybe you're hungry, angry, you're late, you're tired, and you just want to shut something down. You know, again, if that's your reaction before you let yourself go there, just, you know, if you have the time in that moment, just kind of take a pause and listen. Just listen to what they have to say. Just hear them out. Let them be heard, and then go there. You know, and say, okay, I'm hearing you. I disagree. Here's why. Instead of immediately telling someone all the reasons why they're ridiculous, listen to what they have to say, and then I disagree, and here's why I disagree. If you don't have the time, and that's the situation, again, just communicate before you immediately cut them to shreds or just want to shut this thing down. I can't go into this conversation with you right now, but I want to hear what you have to say. Let's make a time later. Let's do this. But I do want to hear you out. So again, before it's just about that, taking that moment between these two aspects to form the response. You know, and it might just be you need a breath. It might be you just need if you're withdrawing, you need 10 minutes, you need 5 minutes, you need to talk to them tomorrow. But it's just giving yourself that little window and communicating to the other person, I need this little window, and then allowing how you feel and those reactions to help form a response. And that's really what it comes down to, is that we want to form responses. We don't want our reactions to own us. We want to form our responses. You know, it's hard to say this. A lot of people, when I say this, they're like, conflict stinks. And I'm a mediator. I think conflict stinks. Conflict does stink. It really does. But the truth is, it's actually an opportunity. It's an opportunity to create depth in relationship. It's an opportunity to solve a misunderstanding. It's an opportunity to, you know, really build on something. You know, move something forward. You know, and it's going to have, you know, many times having those conversations going to have some pretty amazing and unexpected results. When you go into these, you know, the biggest things to remember, you know, kind of what we talked about today, kind of what your propensities are, what the things that you sort of lean towards, you know, whether that's withdrawing or this or that, you know, knowing, you know, the things that are important in your personality. You know, I crave and need freedom. I need to feel heard. I need to know that my goals are respected by my team members, or, my household or any of those things. If I'm a direct person, I need someone to understand and say, hey, you're just a very direct person. It's just understanding. When you have those conflicts, it gives other people the opportunity to understand you in a better way, so that we're not changing ourselves for each other, but we're just giving a little more grace to each other so that we can understand just how to have those relationships. And when you deepen relationship, that's always a good thing. Don't assume don't assume you know the motives, thoughts, and feelings of the other person. And that's a big part of this. When we are engaging in something, or somebody is putting us in a situation, we want to assume that we know their motives. We know what they're thinking. We know how they feel. You're absolutely telling me that my project is horrible. I want to interpret it in a negative way. I know that you're attacking me. I know that we don't necessarily know that. Given the opportunity to kind of dive in a little bit deeper, you're giving someone, you're actually de-escalating the other person. You're making them feel heard, feel safe, feel present, and then you can kind of get through all of those initial feelings and then get to the other side of it. And of course, if at all possible, anytime you need to have a tough conversation with someone, do it in person. It's always going to be best in person. If you can't do it in person, do like a video chat, a phone chat. Never try to have a conversation that's hard with text. There's just so many misunderstandings from, tone. Are you screaming at me because you used all caps? What do you really mean? There's just so many opportunities for text to just leave us completely baffled to what conversation we just had. And the biggest part, ask questions. If you don't understand, ask the question. It's okay. I don't understand. I don't think I'm understanding you correctly. I'm not sure I heard what you said. What do you mean by this? Well, you said when I did that, how did that work with this other vernacular? So by asking those questions, you're peeling back the onion layers, and you're getting to the deeper parts of what's going on. And again, even though we're talking about our personal relationships, our personal conflict, when I say relationships, we're human beings, we're relational. Every human being you have a relationship with. It's just a matter of the type of relationship. It could be a family one. It could be a work relationship. It could be a community member from your church. It could be, someone that you're just really kind of a fond acquaintance, but that's the type of relationship you have with them. So this is really talking about just preserving your relationships, wherever they are, and also giving the opportunity that they might be able to deepen and just become more productive or more satisfying or more gratifying in a different way. So, talking about all that, I love to end on a high note. So anybody who has their results still open, there's a little section on there that's what I like most about being me. So there should be for your top 2 any types, there should be a statement that says what I like most about being a whatever. For myself, I'll kick it off. I'm a 9 and a 2. So as a 9, which is the mediator, haha, I always get lots of jokes about that. I guess it was meant to be. But as a mediator, the thing I like most is that I can see many different sides of an issue, and I tend to be a good facilitator. And as a 2, which is the helper, I'm sensitive to and perceptive about other people's feelings. So with everything else being aside, those are things that I like about myself. So is there anybody want to share what their happiest, what their that particular statement is for them that makes them glad?
So with my 2, I guess, dominant Enneagram types, the 1, the reformer, I think what I like being about a 1 is being the best I can be and bringing out the best in other people. And then the 4, the individualist, I love being able to admire what is noble, truthful, and beautiful in life.
Awesome. Elena, I still know it's you behind that mask.
Sorry, we just signed up a member. Woohoo! But I was reading the question, and I can share mine. What I like being, or what I like about being a 4 is also it's really similar to Olivia. She said, my ability to find meaning in life and to experience feelings at a deep level. I like joke that I like love music, but I like really like, I don't know, like when I listen to music, like it's like on a very like deep level, like music. I just feel like I feel a lot and like really heavily. And it says my ability to establish warm connections with people, which I'm glad that I do what I do, and because I do definitely agree with that. And yeah, I'm like reading them as I go.
Well, I love those things about you too, since I see you all the time.
That's good. Yay. But yeah, I'm just not getting into all of this, and it is pretty crazy, like how accurate it is. And I know someone mentioned this too, but I love that, you know, you could be one type, but there's like the wings, and I think even on his like test, they said that there's like a different type to like your inner like being, like there's just so many different things that this can play into, and I love that. I think I've also heard that like when you're like your best self, you're this number. When you're like not so great, you're this number, and it's so interesting. I like also applying it to like astrology. So like I'm like a Taurus, and like I think it's cool that there's like different, you know, characteristics that apply to both of them. It's cool because like it just helps you like understand yourself, especially for me that I like feel so deeply all the time that it's like, oh, like, you know, this is like why I am the way that I am and how I can better myself, or, you know, work with what I have.
And you know, and that's all any of us can do. That's awesome, because
Yeah.
that's the only thing we really have control over is being aware of where we are. And it's not even a good, bad, right or wrong. It's just
Yeah. It's just who you
acknowledging
are.
where we are. Yeah. And just improving on it and just owning what we might bring to something.
Well, yeah, and that's what I've heard about, like, you know, like, because I'm more familiar with like astrology, but it just talks about how, you know, this is not like your fate or your destiny. Like you can change your cards anytime, like it's up to you, but it's just like these are like maybe like the challenges that you'll face in your life. Like for instance, like maybe a challenge I'll face in my life is like, you know, always internalizing things, but it's like something that I need to like work through. It doesn't mean I'm always going to be this way or always react that way. So anyway, really interesting. And sorry if I've been like everywhere. I'm like sitting at the front desk right now.
Multitasking. And thank you for saying that, Lamb, because it's so true. It's when we talk, all those things you're talking about contribute to our emotional intelligence, which is kind of the cornerstone of this whole exercise, is looking at that self-awareness. Our emotional intelligence, we're not born to it necessarily. That's something that we can improve, but it's going to take effort. It's going to take acknowledgement and work on it, but you absolutely can improve. It's not something, you know, and even with the Integrand, you're a 2, you're a 4, you're a 3. Okay, great. And that's why I like to look at top 2, because you're more than just a number, but these are just things that they resonate, or things that are to consider, so that you can, so any of us can keep building that particular part of our lives. Because at the end of the day, you know, our relationships, that's what drives every part of our life, is our relationships, regardless of what type of relationship that is. So we want to preserve them, and we want to make them better, and we want to work on ourselves to bring the best that we can to any situation. Does anybody have any questions or want to share anything additional or anything like that? No? Okay, well, that was the short, quick version of this, and the first time I've done it online, and I just thank you so much for coming today, and I hope that everybody can take some value out of it and something we can all take away with it. And maybe in the future, when we kind of get back to normal, I can do an in-person, do the longer version of this, where it's a little bit better if we're in person. So maybe we can make a nice event out of that sometime.
Thank
That
you
was
so much, Laura. That was incredible. I know so many of us just took a lot of value out of that. So we appreciate your time with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming today, and we'll figure out in the future. So if they have any questions, anybody needs anything, just, I'm here. It's easy to find me. There's only one of me, so if you Google my name, but feel free to drop a note or question or anything like that.
Thank you, Laura.
Bye, guys. Thank you so much.